Just let me go. I just want to welcome all the students of Strategy, Governance and Ethics, known as SGE. And this is a subject that very many people either pass or flop for one reason or the other. But I always tell my students, there is nothing to be afraid of. So today, we look at one area known as the case study. And case study is always the elephant in the room. Out of the 100% marks allocated for this paper, 40% is allocated to the case study. And that means it's a make or break question. If you answer it well, you start answering question number 2 with 20 or 30 or 40% of the marks in your bag. If you answer it badly, it means for the rest of the questions, you'll be marked out of 16, which greatly diminishes your chances of actually passing. The first thing you need to understand is exactly what is a case study. A case study is a narration of a real life situation. Of a business problem. Which a company encountered. That's the first thing you need to understand. That every case study highlights a business problem. And what this tries to do is to expound on this problem. Now, the objective of the examiner is to ascertain whether a student can formulate a solution to the problem. And there are two things that stand out here. One is the issue that the case study gives you a presentation of a real life situation of a business problem that was encountered by a particular business. And the objective of the examiner, or what the examiner is looking for, is basically to ascertain whether this student can read the case study, understand the problem, and then formulate a solution that can be implemented. So these two words, that is business problem and formulating a solution to that business problem, are actually key to handling a business case study or a strategic management question or case study. And probably, if I may first just look at the approach of a case study question. And what we shall be trying to answer here is how to answer this question. And maybe, in order to make it easy, we can look at it from this perspective of what steps does a student need to follow in order to be able to successfully handle a case study. The first thing is read through the case study. Sometimes we call it skimming. Skimming just means pass through the case study. And as you pass through, the second thing is identify the problems. And I say it could be one, So as you read through, and after reading through, it is important to pause and ask yourself a very, very important question. What exactly is the problem or problems presented by the case study? What problems did the business encounter? Number 3 is to read the questions in the case study. I always say this as far as my students are concerned. The reason why students fail exams is not because they didn't revise, it's not because they were not taught, it's not because they did not understand what they read. The reason they fail questions or they fail exams is simply because they never understood the question that was asked. And once you do not understand the question that has been asked, it becomes nearly impossible to give the right answer. So in order for you to give the right answer, it is important for you to ask yourself, what is the examiner looking for? And then number 4 is look for the answers. In the case study. There are 2 types of questions that basically case studies have, and probably I would want to illustrate. There are those questions I call direct questions. Here, the answers are found in the case study. And number 2, they are what you call the indirect questions. Where the answers are from general knowledge. And that means in order for you to be able to answer successfully the case study questions, you must distinguish which answers can directly be gleaned or gotten directly from the case study. Number 2, which are these indirect questions that require students to use their general knowledge of strategic management, of corporate governance, or even business ethics in order to answer these questions. And then number 4, remember, you are looking at what are the steps you use when you want to answer a case study question. And we said 1 is read through the case study by skimming through it. 2, we say identify the problems or the problem that is posed by the case study. 3, we say read and understand the question. And we say it becomes imperative that you understand the questions in order to give the right answers. And then 4, we say look for the answers in the case study. And this is where we have said there are 2 types of questions you will find in the case study, the direct question and the indirect questions. 5 is to review your answers. To make sure they are correct. And I will go ahead and just pick a very small case study and try to answer the questions that will follow. So an example of a case study. You can say A Limited has been experiencing an increase in sales decrease in profits. The owner has hired you as a management consultant to identify the problem and advice on possible solutions. Now, I repeat again, A Limited has been experiencing an increase in sales, but a decrease in profits. The owner has hired you as a management consultant to identify the problem and advise on possible solutions. Now, I know this is a simplified case study, but there's a lot that you can deduce from the information given. The first thing that we are asked is, what are the problems experienced by the business? The problem here is straightforward. One is a fall in profits. Despite increasing sales. And so the first thing that in any case study you want to look at is identify the problem that has been presented. This is a business that has been growing over a period of time, but the owner cannot be able to explain why the profits are falling despite the sales increasing. And so as a student, the question is, what are the causes of the problem? And this is where now you begin formulating the solution. One is to understand how we calculate gross profit. Gross profit is normally sales minus cost of sales. Most probably, it would be that there is an increase in the cost of sales. And when we talk about increase in cost of sales, purchases comes to mind. It means if your sales are increasing, but your cost of sales are also increasing, you could face a scenario whereby there is increase in sales but decrease in profits. Another thing that probably would be the cause of this would be increase in what you call holding costs. Of stock, or what you call inventory costs. That could still also account for a scenario whereby there is increase in sales but a decrease in profit. And so the first thing is to ask ourselves, what factors exactly affect the gross profit? These are just two of them. There could be many more. On the other hand is to ask ourselves, what affects the net profit? Net profit, we normally say, is gross profit minus expenses. And I want to concentrate on this part because already we have looked at the factors that affect the gross profit. One, there could be increase in costs or operational expenses. And it is important to understand that we have variable costs and fixed costs. So if any of this is to increase, then you would expect a scenario whereby the increase in expenses eats into your gross profit and ultimately reducing the gross profit. And so what I've done here is basically present a very small scenario of a case study. The other thing now, and this is where you get a lot of marks or you lose marks, is what could be some of the solutions to the problem presented in the case study. One would be to seek cheaper stock or purchases. And this will enable you to increase your gross profit and ultimately increase the net profit. Two would be to control the expenses. And of course, when you talk about controlling expenses, there could be a lot as far as controlling of expenses are concerned. Things like budgetary control of expenses would go a long way in doing that. Probably another problem not related to either the gross profit or the net profit would be the pricing of the products or sales. Maybe the owner of the business or the business is not being able to rightly price its products, having taken into account all the operating expenses. And the other problem could be to control inventory. And so, from just a simple case study of about 2 lines, you can see that we have been able to expound on it. What have we done? We have taken it, used the problem presented, used our mind, reasoned, and come up with a solution. And so today, that marks the end of my lesson. Remember, every case study presents a problem. What is the work of the student? The work of the student is to identify the problem and then formulate strategies which can be implemented by the management. And that demystifies our case study question. Until next time, goodbye. And all the best. Remember, distance yourself, sanitize, always wear your mask. And we will see each other when we are sitting for good.